All right, so today we're going to talk about rearranging formulas. So this is AKS 19, and it asks us to rearrange formulas in order to highlight a quantity of interest. So we're going to give you a formula, and we're going to say solve for this certain variable, and you're going to rearrange it so that it is set equal to that one variable. So in order to do this, you're going to have to use PEMDAS. Okay, we're going to be using that working backwards, which we'll see here in a minute. So if we want to start off with the first one, we have solve for R. So we want to isolate R. We want to get just R by itself. So we want to solve for R. So in order to get R equals something, we're going to have to divide by I on both sides. Okay, when we divide by I on both sides, that simplifies to 1. We're left with just R equals V over I. Okay, so that's first one, simplest that we're going to probably do today. So that's the first one. Second one, next we're going to be solving for A. So we want just A equals something. In order to do that, we have to get the L out of the denominator. To get L out of the denominator, we're going to multiply by L on both sides. When we do that, this simplifies to 1, so we're left with A equals L times W. For number 3, now we're adding in another step here, okay, because we have addition as well. So there's more than one operations going on. So we want to solve for X. So we want to think about getting this green X all by itself. In order to do that, let's look at PEMDAS. Okay, working backwards. Do we have a subtraction here? No. Okay, do we have addition? Yes, so we have to undo our addition first, which means we're going to subtract C from both sides. Then we're left with AX equals R minus C. Then we still want to get that X by itself. It's not by itself yet, so we're going to divide by A on both sides, which will give us X equals R minus C over A. And some people, you could also write it by splitting up this fraction. So you can also write it as R over A minus C over A. So those are two different ways to write it. Either one is fine, but it's good to know for multiple choice purposes in case you have an answer that looks like that. All right, so moving on to number 4. Now we're solving for P. So we want to solve for this right here. In order to do that, we want to subtract W first. Subtract W from both sides. 2H minus W equals negative 3P. Now again, focus on what you're trying to isolate. We want P by itself, so we're going to divide both sides by negative 3, which will give us P equals 2H minus W over negative 3. Okay, so again, that's one way you can write it this way, totally fine. You could also write it as negative 2/3 H plus W over 3, because it would be negative W over negative 3, which would become positive. So both are answers, both are good ways to write this. For number 5, now we're introducing another operation. Okay, we're going to have a square in here now because we're solving for just V. So if we want just V, that means we're going to have to do something with that squared also. So start with what we know. We know that we want to work backwards in PEMDAS. So we don't have any addition or subtraction, but we do have multiplication. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is get rid of this 1/2. Well, in order to get rid of 1/2, you're going to multiply both sides by 2. Then this simplifies with this. We have 2 E sub k equals mv squared. Next, we're going to divide by m on both sides. So that'll give us 2ek divided by m equals v squared. Okay, but we want just v. We want just v here. So we still have to take the square root of both sides. So take the square root here, take the square root here. That means we are left with v equals, when we're taking the square root, it's going to end up being plus or minus. So we need to add plus or minus. And then we're going to have 2ek over m. And that is our final answer. All right, moving on to number 6. Here we are solving for m sub m, which means we want this by itself. So the very first thing we need to do is get r squared out of the denominator. So we're going to multiply by r squared multiplied by r squared. These are going to simplify. We have f r squared equals g times m sub m. Again, what are we looking for? We want this by itself. So we need to divide by g, divided by g, and we get m sub m equals f times r squared over g. Okay, this could also be written as r squared f over g, and that is totally fine as well, because they're being multiplied. And for the last one, for the notes, very first thing we need to do, since we have addition, is we're going to need to subtract it. So subtract 32 from both sides. F minus 32 equals 9/5 c. And then we want just c by itself, so we need to make sure we get rid of this 9/5, okay? In order to get rid of 9/5, we're going to multiply by the reciprocal. So the reciprocal is going to be 5 over 9. When we're multiplying this on the other side, be very careful because we need to have this in parentheses. So this would be 5 over 9. And we get that c equals 5/9 f minus 32. And you can leave it just like that. All right, so I'm going to work through some of these problems for you. We're going to go through all of them actually, but so in every single situation, we are going to be solving for y. So we want to get a y by itself. So in this case, for the first one, we want just this y by itself. First thing we're going to do is subtract 2x. Then we're going to have a negative y equals negative 2x plus 8. Okay, well, we don't want a negative y, we want just y. So in order to have just y, we're going to have to divide by -1, which means we're dividing all of these by -1. So our final equation is going to be y, equals 2x minus 8. Okay, for the next one, again, we want just y by itself. So we're going to first add over x. Remember, we're working in reverse PEMDAS. So we're going to add or subtract first. This is going to give us 8y equals x minus 6. And then last but not least, divide by 8 on both sides. This is going to give you y equals x minus 6 over 8, which can also be written as y equals x over 8, or 1/8 x minus 6 over 8, which 6 over 8 is a fraction that reduces to 3 over 4. For number 3, again, we want y by itself, solving for y. So the first thing we're going to do is subtract x from both sides. 1/2 y equals negative x minus 2. Now we need to get rid of this 1/2, so we're going to multiply by the reciprocal, which is 2 over 1. So multiply both sides by 2 over 1. Be careful with the parentheses there, make sure you put it in parentheses. So now we're going to have y equals 2 times negative x minus 2. And if you distribute that 2 out, we're going to get y equals negative 2x minus 4. Number 4, again, I know it's getting old, but I'm going to tell you again, we're solving for y. So we're going to subtract, let me change my color back, subtract 7x first. 3y equals negative 7x plus 12. And we want to divide by 3. So we're going to have y equals negative 7/3 x plus 4. Number 5, start by subtracting 4x squared. And we're going to have 2y equals negative 4x squared plus 12. Next step you want to do is divide by 2. We're going to end up dividing both of these by 2, so we're going to get y equals negative 2x squared plus 6. And that is our answer. Oops. Number 6, subtract x squared. Negative 2y equals negative x squared plus 3. Divide by negative 2. Y equals 1/2 x squared minus 3 over 2. These two negatives here, since we have this negative x squared over negative 2, those two simplify and become a positive. And all I did here was take this divided by 2 is the same as having 1/2 out in front of the x, so I just pulled that 1/2 out front. All right, last couple. Still solving for y. Add a 1. Negative y equals x squared plus 1. Now we don't want a negative y, we want a positive y, so go ahead and divide by negative 1. And we're going to get y equals negative x squared minus 1. And for this problem, you could have also added y over first and then subtracted x squared. Either way works. And the last one, start by adding 6 to both sides. 3y plus x squared equals 6. Now the next thing we need to do is subtract x squared. 3y equals negative x squared plus 6. Last step, divide by 3. So we get that y equals negative 1/3 x squared plus 2. And there you go.